Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris. Welcome to the weekly Spinner Rack. This is going to be a good one. You know what? I'm going to turn on this light. Let me see what that makes me look like real quick. It doesn't wash things out too much. I don't know. I think that adds a good energy. Yeah. Welcome to the show. We are going to do some comic book reviews of stuff that's come out in the past week. Basically just more recommendations, I would say. And we're going to do some juicy comic book news of the week. I'm also going to be inking a sketch I made today. That's going to be Ultraman, something I discovered very recently. Let's say hello to the folks in the chat. That's always fun to greet some of the people that are here early. Well, there's my sister. Hello, Jean. Always love to have you here. Yes, a double salute, says Rick Shelley. I'll give you guys that. Boom, boom. You earned it. Let's see. Who else have we got here? We've got all sorts of people. I'm not going to be able to greet everybody, but hello, El Rondorio. Let's see. Philip Arsenault says, make sure to hit that like button. Yes, please. All right. I got my buddy Randy here. Says, whoa, I might be able to catch this from the beginning for once. I almost got that out. Thank you for let's see. Hello. Hey, lovely here. Yeah, of course, EJ, you would. EJ has done covers for several of the recent Marvel Ultraman comics. So, yeah, lovely to have you here, EJ. And we've also got Andy, become a regular face here. I'm always grateful to have you folks here. This is wonderful. Let's see. Hi, Chris. What's up? Had a fun time attending Cosmic Con in Flushing, Queens. Great. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Hope you're healthy and everything. Hope it was a good convention. Yes. Well, if I didn't highlight your chat, it is definitely personal. There's a few people. So why don't I get started with the show? Tell you what, let me add, hold on. I need to hide that. I don't want to make anybody too famous. If I have a chat up there for too long, I know that you guys become the star and you suck away all my viewers. And then where am I? I'm just kidding around. No, I'm very grateful to have so many people here, including a lot of names that I recognize. Cheesier, A-Man, Beowulf. Lovely to have you. Arsnoff. So some newer names I'm seeing there like Tay and Fran G and Girlfan. Lovely. Lovely. It's slowly filling up. Good. We're giving... greet people. There's a method to this madness. Cliches. As I greet people for a few minutes, that's me vamping, which gives time for the stragglers to go, hey, a live YouTube show. Maybe I'll put this out. It's time to filter. Mention Discord, says MF. Yeah, there's a Discord, but I always sort of forget the exact link to it. Sorry. I'm pretty sure I've got it posted on Twitter, or if you just Google it, I'm pretty sure you can find it, and it's just open. Wow, thank you for the early super chat, Andrew Jefferson. Thank you. You are the star so far. I thought the cats were the stars. You know what? That's a great point. My cats are the stars. My cats, I got some Bengal kittens a few months back, and they're growing fast, but I love them. They're great. They're really good at cuddling. They do take naps, but they're also very, very smart. That means they're very, very active. You got to play with them a lot. If you're not playing with them, it means they're destroying something. So I used to build huge Lego sets. That would be the thing I would do to relax. I just sit down, I follow the directions, click, click, click. Oh, so satisfying. It's like ASMR, but I'd build something. I loved it. As soon as I got the kittens, I started breaking things down because I was like, they're going to climb. They're going to knock things off shelves. It's a little more than that, especially Lily, my girl. What she does is she has an eye for the minifigs. And she goes and grabs them in her mouth, runs away with them. So I'm like, I'm just breaking things down, and I've got like 3 seconds right around the time I got. I just had I don't even build them. I've got Panic. The Office is in that NBC sitcom, and the Doctor Strange Sanctum Sanctorum. But these kiddies just want to destroy my Lego sets. So you got to like break it down, and you got to keep them entertained. But I would love to have them pop in here. They're still fun. I love them. Let's see. Am I going to play Catman in James Gunn's new DCU? James, let's talk. I think it's just a good idea, right? And yeah, am I perfect for Paste Pop Pete in the MCU? Of course. But if DC wants to cast me first as Catman, who am I to argue with the demands of the fans? You got it. I'll do it. Fine. Get off my back. Let's see. Here's a super chat that I will gladly acknowledge. Thank you, Zach. I've changed my gym schedule to watch this show while I'm on the treadmill. That's awesome. Wish I could do more. You're doing plenty just by watching. And thank you for this super chat. Thank you for the countless hours of entertainment, Chris. Well, that's healthy. Look at that. Exercising and watching this show. A little good, a little bad. We mix it together. I don't know what we make, actually. I did set up the wheel, Gene. My sister got me this huge exercise wheel for them. They haven't figured out how it basically works. I'm sure they will eventually. I'm sort of holding them gently sometimes so that their paws start moving it, and I spin it for them slowly, and I'm like, get it? You can run around in this. They haven't quite figured it out yet. They will. But they haven't figured it out yet. Hello, Daniel. Nice to see you there. All right, tell you what. Let me add another window, and we'll get started with some comic reviews. Mini reviews, really. Because there wasn't even actually that much that I personally picked up. Always curious to hear what you guys are picking up in the past week and what like really excited you. I rely on people's recommendations. That's how you find cool stuff. I'm getting Nightclub. I mean, it's $1.99. That's a pretty low ask on anything. Mark Millar, one on Ramirez. Cool premise. High school kids become vampires. Yeah, they need blood, but they're not like blood crazed and immoral and soulless. So they actually decide to dress themselves up head to toe in a costume, including a luchador mask, and fight crime as superheroes. Pretty cool. Also, there's like a kid dealing with bullies. It's just a cool premise. And this art by one on Ramirez, I'm not familiar with his work from before, but I really like it. We're going through the classic tropes, discovering powers. It's pretty easy to still jump on. And I'd say for $1.99, that's a pretty low ask, all things considered. So I'm curious where it goes. I would say that this is, as far as Mark Millar stuff, especially modern Mark Millar stuff, so far, I like it. It's not too nihilistic. Maybe it'll get there. We'll see. But for now, I kind of like it. Trying to decide where to stack some comics. Put them here. I do like horror, don't I? House of Slaughter. Issue 11 here starts a new story arc, but with a character we did meet before in House of Slaughter. This is Jace Boucher from House Butcher. That might be a lot if you haven't read any Something is Killing the Children or House of Slaughter. But essentially there are monster hunters out there. This guy felt betrayed by his people and abandoned them. He's doing his own thing. He's raising kids that have been sort of orphaned by monsters killing them. I don't know if I want to give away too much of like the plot, though, to be honest. Let's just say that so far as the House of Slaughter spinoff goes, this first issue is the story that I like the most. Maybe it's because they've already built this character in a previous arc that was okay, but I kind of like this one where he's a little bit more alone and on his own, and he's got that history. I like it. Solid art by who's the guy's name? Fuso. I gotta see the credits real quick, because this is an artist I'm not overly familiar with yet. Let's see where the title is. Come on, is it at the end? It must be at the end. There it is. Antonio Fuso. It definitely makes me wonder, seeing these names. It might not be anything, but you've got like Antonio Fuso, Miquel Muerto, Werther Deladere. It certainly seems, doesn't it, like American comic books are starting to hire a lot more people from all over the world than ever before. They could be Americans, I don't know, but it is interesting. Let's see. Andy has a great question here. Any info from the stores you go to as whether the $1.99 price tag is helping sales? I don't know yet. I will try to ask around and find out. I know that the main comic store I shop at didn't get them. And although they do definitely skew way more heavily towards superhero fare with Marvel and DC. So they do some stuff from Boom and IDW and Image. They definitely do, but not everything. So it's not, I think the store knows who its audience is and orders very carefully. So, it's a great store. I love it. But they're not going to just order a bunch of stuff that might not sell at their particular location. I go to a different one for that. But I'm only going there like maybe every 2 or 3 weeks type thing to just pick up things that my store didn't order. And my store will order for me if I know ahead of time. I'll give you an example. James Tynion and Michael Oeming have done this book called Project Blue Book about like the FBI investigations into aliens and stuff like that, which is like it's partially based on truth and stuff, just like the X-Files was. And they've made a comic about that. And today is the final order cutoff to ask your store to order it. And I knew ahead of this thanks to Twitter, so I asked my store to order it. But I hadn't thought to tell my store to order Nightclub. So I went to a store I'm not a regular at, so I didn't really talk to the store owner. But it is a good question as to like whether they're selling more because of the low price tag, because like what's the skin in the game for them in there? I don't know what the profit margin is. Have I ever heard of Action Comics in Federal Way? I don't think so, but it's possible I've been there and just forgot. Definitely the internet would help in working with people all over the world. Right. Yeah, MF is a little more cynical, but that might be true too. Lower wages, probably. Americans probably cannot afford to live, and so they are getting out of comics. I don't know if I go all that way, but there are definitely countries where, the going rate for, comic books here might go further in another country. So we might be hiring more people like that. That's possible. Yes. I consider myself lucky sometimes to live in Seattle because I have been to the Fantagraphics comic shop several times, more than I can count off the top of my head. It's small, but it's really cool. Yeah, they have a lot of Fantagraphics stuff, and they have a wall that's essentially a gallery. So they'll have original art by various artists up there all the time. Really cool stuff. Really, really cool. I hope Mark Millar starts interviewing YouTube comic peeps. Would love to see you two jaw it out. That's right. He's got like a podcast, doesn't he? I think he's got a podcast. Anyway, I do recommend this. This is a good jumping on point too. If you've never read either House of Slaughter or Something is Killing the Children, you can jump into this. It's a new arc. This spinoff basically, it'll always say like what part it is of a story. This is part 1. And those are good jumping on points to get into that world and familiarize yourself. Yes. I hope I was clear there. The Fantagraphics store, it does sell Fantagraphics material. Mostly, of course, they've got spinner racks full of Batman. Mostly. But they'll have a few Fantagraphics books in there. I have not spoken with the Hernandez brothers. They did come to an SPX, and I saw them and listened to them speak and stuff like that. So, I mean, but I haven't like met them. They don't know who I am or anything like that. No. Let me keep moving on with these little glimpses. Yo, Batman, Superman, World's Finest is fun. Mark Waid, Dan Mora, two people that know how to do good superhero stuff. And I'm going to spoil something a little bit, okay? This is the end of a story arc here. I'm going to spoil something a little bit. This is set a little bit in the past, okay? Just to be clear. It's Batman and Superman, and almost always Robin as well. You can tell by these Teen Titans, like, that's the old version. So that's sort of the indicator that's in the past. And Batman and Superman are both sort of trying to raise this superhero, super being from a parallel world that's, you know, orphaned and abandoned. He's a mix of Batman and Superman's pasts. In the end of this, this surprised me. Maybe it shouldn't have. Maybe everybody knew about this. He gets transported into another dimension. Okay, so like the bad guy, like the good guys beat him, but as a last ditch thing, he sent this kid into a parallel world, right? And this page implies something big. He meets this guy called Gog, and all of a sudden I was looking at it and I go, "Oh, that's Magog from Kingdom Come." I didn't realize that I'd been reading essentially his origin story this whole time. So while I'm giving that little bit away, you know, you either read it or you didn't, but the rest of the last few issues before this are telling that story. And so I think that that's kind of a cool hook, right? Does it tie directly? It doesn't explicitly say like, and one day you'll have some adventures in a world called Kingdom Come. It doesn't quite go that far, but we can read between the lines if we've read the two stories. And I did not know that that's what I was reading. Was like, you know, that this was the early days of this character, but it doesn't contradict any continuity or anything like that. Instead, it just fills us in on a character's background that we'd never really seen before. And by the way, yeah, Frangie says, I like the art. Reason enough to get this book. Dan Mora has some very clean lines, very dynamic stuff. There's types of art that I really like, and Dan Mora is just so in my wheelhouse. It's been really fun discovering him over the last year or so. Let's see. Just realized Thy Will Be Done title tells it all. Right? Where does it say Thy Will Be Done? Oh, yeah. Right there. Excuse me. Thy Will Be Done. Thy Kingdom Come, Thy Will Be Done. So, it isn't like it was necessarily, I don't think, supposed to be a secret, but I didn't pick up on it. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't throw it in your face that this is related to something else. Instead, it definitely tells its own story, and it's really interesting seeing this very conflicted and troubled being that Batman and Superman are each trying to mentor and raise properly, and it isn't easy. You know, it's really good. Mora is so perfect. Absolutely. Yeah, they revealed that he was going to become Magog a few issues ago. Flew over my head for some reason. Don't know why. Wasn't paying attention. Let's see. Maxie says, loved your latest episode. Great stuff. I'd like to recommend the Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy game to anyone who's a fan of the characters. It's actually my favorite version of them. The game is great, very underrated because it came out at the same time as Marvel's Avengers video game, which got a lot of publicity. And it's sort of like, it's a buggy, flawed game. It has some fun parts to it, Avengers does, but it's not as good as the Guardians of the Galaxy game. Guardians of the Galaxy game has a great story, a great, you know, unique take on all the main characters. Really, really fun. I totally agree. It's a great game. Really, really good. But thank you for the compliment. Yeah, that episode took me a little longer than usual for some reason, but I'm proud of it, and it seems to be doing fairly well. Seems to be doing fairly well. I don't read Nightwing every month, more because I've just never been the world's biggest Nightwing fan. I like Nightwing, but I just never been like an uber fan, right? But I do feel like I've been missing out on the Tom Taylor Bruno Redondo run. I definitely picked up their issue where Redondo drew all like 22 pages as one image. And I made an episode inspired by that, talking about like that technique. That is still like just what an accomplishment for 2022. I did my top 10 comics of the year, but if I wanted to just talk like, like a single issue that like did something incredibly creative and original, Nightwing, I think it was 87. Just fantastic. Really, really good. Anyway, this is issue 100. So Tom Taylor, the writer, Bruno Redondo, the artist, they're doing something a little bit new with Nightwing. There's also a bunch of guest artists because this is an extra big issue. Pretty big. It's got some good action. It's got some funny stuff. It's got some sweet stuff. Yum. And oh, you know what's cool? Look at this. This is like a nice moment that I just don't feel like I've seen said a whole lot. Nightwing hugging Batman and calling him dad. I mean, they are father and son, but they don't usually talk to each other quite that way. There's obviously a lot of love there, and they talk about each other being, crime fighting partners. They don't really call themselves like son and dad, but they do in this issue, and I like that. I like that a lot because that doesn't need to always be subtext. I think that there should be moments where they're open with each other from time to time. That would just happen sometimes. It sets up a new status quo for Nightwing that does follow fairly organically out of that Crisis on Infinite Earths or Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which I didn't love, but Nightwing definitely took the lead there. And the Justice League's kind of broken right now, so they're asking Nightwing to lead the Titans to become the world's premier super team, the heroes that remain. And I'm like, yeah, I think that it's time for them to do that. We have seen moments like that sometimes, don't we? Grant Morrison's run with Frank Quitely where Nightwing stepped up and was Batman. I think a lot of people really like Dick Grayson, and they really do want him to be sort of like one of the premier superheroes. And he is. I mean, he's been Robin for a long time, and Robin's always been an important character. Nightwing's been an important character. Taking a bigger leadership role, it's a sensible idea. It is. So we'll see. Edward agrees that yes, Nightwing, this run has been such an ride. Really like the lightheartedness and action. It really is. What's this say? Zach says Bruce's dialogue was such a great moment and feels cathartic for both characters. That's a great word for it. It really is. It's something you probably have in the back of your mind a lot, and you sort of want to see happen. It's nice to see that happen, to call themselves son and father. It's kind of funny how they just don't say stuff like that very much. Because I think I don't know which page it is, but Batman does say, like, oh yeah, here it is. He says, they're talking about Alfred, who I guess is dead. Yeah, I guess he died actually, didn't he, in that Tom King run. And they've been respectful of that, actually, DC has. But Bruce says, he, Alfred, would have told me that I am so proud my son has grown to be the best of us. So he calls him son first, actually, which is a big moment for Bruce Wayne Batman. And this this quiet moment of "I love you, Dad" is really framed well. There's an impact here, isn't it? With like this negative space. I mean, it lets that moment breathe, which is just really solid storytelling. And really solid, especially considering like Bruno Redondo hasn't been working like that many years. I mean, he's been working for several years. I'm not trying to undersell it, but that's just a really clever bit of storytelling. It's really nice. Interesting question. Let me figure this out. Has been, whoops, I clicked on the wrong thing. Hold on. Andrew asked, yeah. Has Dick been Nightwing longer than he was Robin? Okay, so Robin would have been somewhere darned close to like 1930. And he became Nightwing during the Marv Wolfman, George Perez Titans run. I want to say that might have been very early 80s. I think he's still been Robin longer. Somebody want to look it up? Okay, sorry, 1940. What? Yeah. Okay, so he's 1940 and 1980. Thank you, people. Okay, so he was Robin for 40 years, 1940 to 1980. He has been Nightwing a little bit longer. He has now been Nightwing a little bit longer, a couple years. Isn't that something? That's, you know, what's interesting is you might have thought that DC might have kept track of that, and basically that year that he had been Nightwing longer than Robin, they might have made a big deal out of it, right? You're like, hey, this character has been Nightwing longer than he's been Robin. Like it's 41 years now. I don't know. They probably should have celebrated that a little. Maybe just do it like something on like his 5th anniversary as Nightwing. They should probably do something to acknowledge that. That would be cool. Or maybe not. What do I know? I'm just a marketing guy. So, Punisher. Folks, whether you like Punisher or not, if you're not reading this, you're missing out. This is one of the best takes on Punisher. And it seems like some of the best takes, not always, but a lot of times some of the best takes on Punisher are when it goes a little bit outside of the comfort zone of what we're used to. Because I think when we look at Garth Ennis, he had a bit of a funny take on it. It was darkly satirical, right? But it was kind of funny with characters like the Russian and stuff. That was something new. I personally think that the Rick Remender and initially Tony Moore run, where he was Frankencastle, was again exploring something new about the character. It doesn't always work because that Bernie Wrightson illustrated period of time where he was an angel was not great. But the Punisher here is being corrupted by the Hand, those evil ninjas. How corrupted? He now has the powers of the Beast. That's like their dark god that these ninjas worship. And he's literally able to take out Ares, the god of war. This guy's been an Avenger, a Dark Avenger. I mean, he's really powerful. You know, essentially Thor level. And the Punisher now has the power to take him out. And if you only know the Punisher as like the guy that just shoots gangsters, you'd be like, that's crazy. But this is issue 9, and it's built up to this point in a very organic and believable way. And the story isn't about like, hey, he's so powerful, you know, like, oh, he's so cool. It's a tragedy. You're seeing every single issue, Frank is sliding a little bit more and letting himself be corrupted, which is something. And a bunch of superheroes have taken notice, which makes sense. This is too big to be ignored, right? We're talking Daredevil and Wolverine, Black Widow, Captain America. They're all going like, hey, the Punisher is about to be a huge threat. Moon Knight, Doctor Strange. It's almost a version of the Illuminati when you look at it, almost. These guys are going to team up to do something about Frank Castle. I mean, we're building to a point where this is almost that what if issue that I think Garth Ennis wrote. What if the Punisher killed the Marvel Universe? He is at the point where he could. And that's interesting. But what's also interesting is it's constantly been filled with flashbacks of young and teenage Frank Castle and showing us how he became this person and what damaged him and what molded him and what decisions he made early on that shaped him as an adult. It makes it feel kind of epic, you know? It makes it feel like it's a really big story. His wife definitely starts to get some agency in this. By the way, that's the reason why Frank Castle is working for the Hand. They've always been established as being able to resurrect people. They've resurrected his wife. That's legit something I can believe that Punisher would want and would be willing to work with people he otherwise would never give the time of day to. So it's doing something very new with Punisher. I like it. I like it quite a bit. This is one of my favorite takes on the Punisher. If you don't really like that character, usually all I can say is that this creative team, Jason Aaron, Jesus Saiz, Paul Azaceta, Matt Hollingsworth on colors, they're doing something special. They really are. This will be remembered. Sometimes you just get a sense after a while. You're like, oh, that's a run that's going to be like talked about in like 5 years. That was a high point, and it is. So I like it. See, hold on. Come here. I'm surprised by how much the Hand's resurrection of Frank's wife made me. That crosses a line, man. It's pretty awful. There's other stuff I'm not even mentioning, but yeah. I've been reading Slam Dunk because I'd always heard that it's like a classic, you know, popular, well-respected manga. And I was like, really? A basketball manga? So I've been reading it, right? This is funny. Nobody ever told me that Slam Dunk is very, very funny. The artist can obviously draw very, you know, maybe I shouldn't say very, but he can draw realistic, right? He can draw realistic. But it can get very silly sometimes because it's about like, you know, basically a high school freshman that's trying to impress a girl. That's the only reason he starts playing basketball. So like some of these faces are very cartoony, but I kind of like how bold manga can be in switching between realistic or somewhat realistic and cartoony. It's not something you see a whole lot in American comics, but it works. Anyway, yeah, it follows the sort of shonen model of, you know, a young guy not exactly getting powers, but getting like better and better and like leveling up, right? But it's also a really funny sort of romantic story. I recommend it. I had no idea it would be so funny. So I'm having a lot of fun with this one. That's fair, Andrew. Realistic might not necessarily be the correct term, but detailed, based more or less in the real world as compared to pure cartoony. It's really funny. That's a great question. What are some other good sports comics? I'll be honest, there are going to be some, but I don't think there's that many. And I think it's something. Well, there are in the world of manga. I know that there are like tennis and volleyball comics, baseball, Yeah, I said volleyball. All sorts of things like that. There are. I think it's something that's a little bit lacking here in America. I think that could be like a way in. Obviously, some people that love sports love the collecting aspect. You know, cards are more popular again, collecting sports cards. And I think that if there was a sports-based comic that treated their sport respectfully and organically in the story, I think people would be into it. Yeah, that manga about wheelchair basketball is also by Takehiko Inoue. So he really loves basketball. Yeah, that's good. Um, what's happening here? There we go. Alex says Alex Toth Hot Wheels and Speed Racer are fun reads. That's fair. Good luck finding Hot Wheels by Alex Toth. I've been looking for that one. That's a tough comic to come across. I heard that Ishida no Joe is good. That's the boxing one, right? That's the boxing one. Slam Dunk loses its humor later in the series, and the artist developed into a beast of an artist. I've seen his work in Vagabond, and so I was expecting that. Like, that's what I saw first by Takehiko Inoue. And I was expecting it to look like that. And so, like, I opened this up and it's a little cartoony. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. But even if it like slowly moves away from the humor into more of like a competitive, realistic take on basketball, I'm fine with that. So far, I'm really enjoying this, is all I can say. Let's see. Sportsmaster should have a run where he actually plays sports. There you go. Yeah, Sportsmaster, isn't that like a DC character? I forget. Oh, there you go. That is sort of an example of a sports comic. That's fair. That's very fair. Dual Power Bomb was pretty great. Yep. Let's see. Slam Dunk is his early work. You'll see in the later issues his style changed so much. I'm excited to see that. I'm going to read it. I'm excited to see that evolution. Evolution of artists is great. In fact, I'm going to talk about an artist's evolution tonight, right before I start the news. So very, very soon. Give me a moment. Yeah, Sportsmaster is DC. I thought so. I know everything about comics. I know some, but I don't know. I don't know everything. I picked up this trade paperback because I realized that I had read the Neil Gaiman, Mark Buckingham Golden Age story arc back when it came out, more or less. I might have gotten them as back issues, but they were recent back issues. But I hadn't actually read this in a long time, and now I'm reading their new stuff on Silver Age, and I wanted to remind myself some of this story. So I picked this up, and I also found this at like a really good price. This is just a random issue of Marvel Preview, sort of a sci-fi zine. Cool cover here by Neil Adams, which you don't like see his more painted work all the time. I thought that was interesting. And this is the magazine issue 4, was it, that like introduced Star-Lord? But this is issue 1. Man Gods from Beyond the Stars. Very retro, but it was a good price, so I picked that up. All right, so I've got a light sketch here of Ultraman. Tell you what, before I even get into news and stuff, let me just say this. I went to see the movie Shin Ultraman. Now, I've heard and picked up through like cultural osmosis a little bit about Ultraman, but I've never sat down and watched his show or, any of the anime, any of the films. I've never watched any of that before. So I wasn't 100% sure that this would be for me, but I did like what the directors had done for Shin Godzilla. That's one of my favorite Godzilla movies. Same creative team here. So I took a chance, and at first it seemed a little more campy than the Godzilla, but boy, as it went on, I really liked the look and the ideas that they were exploring with Ultraman. I recommend it. It's a really fun movie, and Ultraman is just really cool. Okay. By the way, like on that Marvel preview, Andy says that there's some Alex Nino art in that. So underrated. Such a great artist. Lucky to have him. And anyway, so I went to see it, and I was like, you know what? This is a blast. I get it a little more now, like why it has endured since about 1965, I want to say. Well, I think Ultraman was 66, but there was a show that preceded it called Ultra Q, sort of set in the same world with like monsters and scientists and stuff like that. And Ultra Q was, I think, 65, if I'm remembering right. Because ever since I saw the movie, I'm like, well, I want to know more about this Ultraman. So I've been watching videos about it and like trying to educate myself. Just a really cool, original sci-fi character. Essentially a superhero, but there's some really cool lore and mythology behind it. So, yeah, I like it. I think it's a really cool, fun movie. It does start off with some giant kaiju fights and has several of them throughout the movie. and some characters that you can really care about, especially Ultraman. Okay, Ultra Q came out in 64. Thank you for the correction. It's so fun. Yeah. Xavier tells me that Shout Factory has been releasing all the Ultra series on DVD Blu-ray. There's a lot. That's another reason why I sort of stayed away. And I was like, geez, because if I get into this, it's going to take a long time to catch up on all of it. So I don't know, but I'm curious. And yes, I saw a couple people post this, but yeah, the same director is doing a Kamen Rider movie. So I would be curious to see that too, because that's another thing. If you showed me a picture, I'd go, that's Kamen Rider. I know that much, right? But have I watched it? No, I haven't. So I'm not an expert on some of this stuff. But I've been to Japan several times, and I definitely see the toys and the DVDs and stuff like it. This stuff's popular. I definitely see a lot of it out there. Anyway, it was fun. It's a little camp, but the special effects are good, and the characters are good, and Ultraman is just cool. I mean, he fights gigantic monsters. It's hard to mess that up. It is. So that's why I'm drawing this, is because I have really been enjoying that. Let's go ahead and do some news, though. That's a fair question, Walter. As a Turtles fan, did I watch the Peter Laird interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe? I've got it saved to watch later. Just haven't had time to watch it. But congrats to the boys on getting such a great guest. Yeah, huge Ninja Turtles fan. I've got a little bit of Ninja Turtles news in this episode. So, going to add this. Tell you what, before I get into the news, actually, one thing I'd like to talk about is the evolution of an artist that I personally really, really like. So, it is the 20th anniversary of Invincible from Image Comics. Robert Kirkman, everybody knows Ryan Ottley had a huge run drawing almost all of it. But the original artist, guy I really, really love, Cory Walker. This is the original cover there on the left to Invincible. And yeah, just over 20 years ago, he drew that. And it looks great. It does. Cory, on his blog, posted that he was thinking of redrawing, just for his own edification, the entire first issue. Now, eventually, he got like about a few pages in and decided his time would be better spent elsewhere. But just take a look at some of the improvements. Like, this already looks dynamic, right? That's a good pose. I think that he was basically told, if I remember correctly, that to put him against just a cracked wall. I'm pretty sure that was a Jim Valentino request, just something Jim thought was a good idea. But anyway, Cory made something of it, right? But look over here. All of a sudden, the pose is just like we're a little bit higher looking down, and it puts us in the perspective. The shadow all of a sudden has a little more shape, too, of the villain of the piece. So we're looking at more of a specific perspective. And I think it's just a little more dynamic. I forget which artist said this. It might have been Wally Wood, where, like, as much sort of like twisting and turning and like hard angles you can do to the limbs makes things a little more interesting and dynamic. Now, you can go overboard. Frank Robbins is an artist that went overboard, but bless him for his crazy poses. And also, like, this just looked like a cracked wall. This, to me anyway, tells more of a story. It looks like Invincible literally got thrown into the wall and is rebounding back. To me, I see a little bit more storytelling here. And also, Cory has figured out like where to eliminate certain superfluous lines. This was his style, with like, a line to indicate like the chin, a line on the nose to sort of indicate the center. I think he realized that a little bit less line work makes Mark here look a little younger. And this face is just a little rounder. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I was impressed. Here's the very first page. This is a great dynamic shot. Cory was always great at technology details, foreshadowing and stuff like that. But look, by just like twisting and putting the head like in a slightly more natural pose there, I think we can like just read that a little better. This fist is just a little less stylized in a way. And I think that just, when he can do faces and fists this confidently, it just shows that he's even more confident. We're seeing the same story, but it's a little different. Also, like so few lines here, but so much is conveyed with the background. We know that this is like, the Arctic or something. Little decisions like, Corey's always been a guy with very open line work. And I think that these pants read great. But look at these, where he knows exactly where to put certain seams and folds, give us some shoe detail. And he found a way to just sort of put this chest bomb piece a little bit more in the center. So it's all like, the composition is a little stronger. It's a little easier to read this. And that's a really important element. He cut down these 2 panels of Invincible throwing to just put him on the side. And then he hurls the character to the right. It makes it feel like he's transitioning across the page in a more organic way. Such clever storytelling decisions. This explosion, it isn't radically different, is it? It's not radically different. We've got the character, in silhouette because of this explosion. But you can really see the center here and that it's emanating outward and pushing the character back, as compared to just sort of being a vague explosion. These are things I wouldn't necessarily think to do when I'm drawing, but Corey has figured it out with some experience. Even just this pose of throwing, he's throwing with his right hand, and this one he had his right leg extended, and that's possible, but this just seems a little bit more like a running pose. There are decisions here that I really admire. Look, he broke the panel borders here with Invincible flying away, right? Was that necessary? Apparently, according to Corey, probably not. Probably not. Little things. He's really big here, and that's good, usually. See, you want to see the character. He's smaller here, but what does that do? That gives us, like, the negative space makes it feel a little bit more like he's falling. Whereas here it's sort of crowding against the panel, and this panel can almost read more like, falling against a wall or an obstacle. But here we see his full body falling through the sky. So it's a little decision. This impact here is very cool and dynamic, but he switched it here so that like the body is coming down from left to right, and therefore more debris is shooting to the right than to the left. There's so many little decisions here that I'm really impressed by. This one is a cool picture of Invincible brushing some snow off of himself, but why do we need to see the back of his head? It's more interesting to see the front. Little decisions. Little decisions. In this establishing shot, he found a way to show a little bit more of the house, like with a car and stuff like that, because this panel wasn't as important. Like there's a lot of wasted space to this panel. So he shortened that by pushing it in a little bit and making this character smaller and making Mark, who's the focus of it, like, a little bigger and a little more embarrassed here as compared to he's got more of a nondescript expression here. Little decisions, but I personally was really, really impressed. Really impressed. So I just wanted to go through that. Corey's blog has a lot of interesting stuff. Let's see, definitely employing the rule of thirds more in the new version. His initial poses are good, but look almost stiff compared to the redraws. Yeah, if you don't compare it, it looks great. It looks great. Draws that mom a lot better. Yeah, let's see. Andy, I recently thought about doing a complete redraw of my first issue of Marvel Adventures. I doubt I ever will, but high five, Corey. Lovely work as usual. These are all the pages that Corey did. I just showed you all of them. But you can look up his blog. I know I tweeted it yesterday, the link. I don't know it off the top of my head. I should have put it in there. Let's see. Does the new version look more like the animated version? I mean, it's all Corey's work, and the animated version, Corey is the lead designer. So he designs all the main characters. And another guy who did some Invincible side stories, we're talking Brit and Adam Eve, stuff like that. Nate Bellegarde is designing a lot of the background characters. So the cartoon is great. How old was he when Invincible began? I don't know, maybe like 22 or something. It's hard to remember. You know, you say thanks to me, but it's really thanks to Corey for sharing this. He doesn't have a huge presence online. Corey does not waste his time on much social media, but he does have a blog, and I just thought it was interesting to compare that. But let's move on to some news of the week. So I'm going to start here with something that I like, which is Lego. I was talking to you guys about that earlier. I don't know if you've heard about it, but there's a program called Lego Ideas where fans can pitch their ideas for a Lego project, and there's a process to it, okay? So basically, I'll explain that. First of all, what we're looking at here is a design by a guy who calls himself Lego Overwatch, and he got the 10,000 votes needed to proceed. So if 10,000 people on Lego Ideas say that they like your idea and that they would support it if it was a set, that then kicks it to a Lego committee to review. And they review anything that hits 10,000. They do it like a couple times a year. No, actually 4 times, excuse me. There's a quarter. This one will join the third quarter review process. There are 2,898 pieces in the set that gives us a comic shop, which inside has like bricks on a spinner rack, which I thought was actually pretty clever. Will this become a set? If I'm being honest, I don't think that this is necessarily the kind of thing Lego would move forward on, because they tend to like to design their own modular buildings. They don't usually move forward fan modular buildings, but you never know. You never know. All I can say is it's moving on to that process for Lego to review it and approve it. And if it moves forward and you get it into stores, you get 1% of all the profits, the 1% of the sales, I should say. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I've definitely picked up a bunch of cool Lego Ideas sets. I think the first Friends set might have been a Lego Ideas. There was a Winnie the Pooh one. I think Wall-E from the Pixar movie was an Ideas set. There've been a lot. I want to say Doctor Who was. I love the Lego Ideas program. It leads to some very cool and unique sets. So who knows if this will become, but I wanted to at least mention it since it was comic book related. The Office looks like Lego Ideas. The Office might have been too. Yeah, The Office might have been a Lego Idea set. I like the Lego spinner rack, yeah. Isn't there a Daily Bugle Lego set? There is. It's very nice. It's very nice. So there is a class action lawsuit against AI companies, the AI image, or EJ doesn't like this term, but some people call it AI art. I know EJ, you're in the chat, and and I agree with you. It should be called AI images, not AI art. Art is created by a person. The reason I mention it is one of the 3 artists is this person, Sarah Anderson, who draws comics. And I'm going to go into some detail. There have been a lot of comic book artists' work stolen to come into this. So we've got 3 artists, one of whom is Sarah Anderson. They launched a class action lawsuit so other people can join this if they've been affected. They're doing it against Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, and DreamUp, AI generators. They allege that they've had their rights infringed on by this, as well as the rights of, quote, millions of artists. I think they're probably right about that, by training AI on billions of images without the artist's consent. We're talking so many images here that even if you assessed a damage of only $1 per image stolen, these companies would be paying out something like $55 billion. That would make it the biggest art theft of all time if these companies are found guilty. They probably do not have $55 billion, by the way, but that would be like the damages at a very conservative estimate of each image had a dollar value. Now, probably they have a lot more than $1. This is a huge, huge, potentially precedent-setting case. Millions of images were likely taken off of DeviantArt, and instead of protecting their users, many of whom are comic book artists, DeviantArt instead launched a paid DreamUp app based on this technology. Not great. So here's an image by Sarah Anderson, and here is a version that AI created. And is it the exact same? No, not at all. But I think if we jump back and forth, we can see that it's obviously intended to be some of her work. And then you can fine tune it or something if you've made this. Listen to this. They identified comic artists whose work was absolutely captured in this data set the AI generators are using. And we are talking like dozens upon dozens of super popular comic book artist names. I just wrote down a few. For instance, I put Jim Mahfood in here because he often will drop into the show. Jack Kirby, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, George Perez, Walt Simonson, Bruce Timm, Rob Liefeld, Ryan Ottley, Steve Ditko, Steve Dillon. Anybody you can think of that's a popular comic book artist, Howard Chaykin, they're all in there. They've all had their work stolen by this, put into this data set to generate this stuff. You can literally search to see if your work has been stolen at haveibeentrained.com, and you can search by image or by your name, and you can see if you have also had your work stolen by it. Oh, trust me, DeviantArt probably has some lawsuits coming. Probably. Just to be, yeah. The Lion 5B dataset is 5.5 billion images. I think you mean 5.5 billion. Oh, okay. Sorry, I did some math wrong, but still, it's a lot of money. Sorry, I probably did do my math wrong. Getty Images filed a lawsuit too. Ooh, they've got plenty of money. Yeah, if their work was stolen. I haven't checked yet. I don't know. Probably not. I didn't have any artwork on DeviantArt, and I don't think anybody's looking for my art. I'm nobody, but you don't know. I could check. I know like some of the artists are popular, like Art Germ is in there. Yeah, like tons of people. Oh, DeviantArt is listed. I mean, DreamUp is DeviantArt's app, so DeviantArt is part of this lawsuit. I just mistyped it. Okay. Yeah, maybe. Well, I think that worrying might be overstating it, but I think that artists are trying to be quick about protecting their rights. This is some very sketchy decisions in terms of how these AI generators were set up, because the Lion 5B data set was established under a nonprofit company to train like AI as a project. Fine. But then that data set is being used for for-profit businesses. Not great. Not great. Anyway. Getty Images can eat it. They abuse the hell out of copyright already, buying up photography collections to make money of royalties. I don't know a lot about how Getty works. I just know that they're a huge company that sells images, but I don't really know how they work, if I'm being honest. So that's fair. Thanks for sharing that, Clay. No, sometimes I just make jokes by accident. I'm just so funny. They just fall out. Blah, 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 blah. I don't know. But it affects a lot of comic book artists here. A lot of comic book artists. I won't be surprised if the more artists join this. Look at this. Michael just took advantage of looking at this, and he just said, I just found my art on Have I Been Trained? So you were affected. Your art is in there training these AIs people are making money off of something you created and you're getting no compensation. You got no notice or anything like that. Your rights were infringed on. That's how it works. Did you see the New York Times on the AI-generated Jodorowsky Tron movie? No, I didn't. That sounds interesting. So, just worth sharing. We'll see how this all shakes out, but it could end up setting some precedents that at least protect artists. I hope it does. I hope it does. You're welcome. Good luck taking care of yourself there. AI stand-up comedy. You know, I used one of those stupid like AI chatbots and said like, tell a joke in the style of Norm Macdonald about the Avengers, and it was saying something like, why is Iron Man always in trouble? Because he's got a lot of Avengers work to do. And I was like, it's not a good joke. I don't know if that could, it almost might count as a joke though. So what other news do we have? Boop. Is this a weekly feature here? Right now it is. I hope it doesn't remain that way. But we're dealing with another comic book store that's been robbed. This is just what I find when I look at the news for comic book related news. I'm coming across these. I swear I didn't like a year ago when I was doing this show. I swear I didn't, but now I always am. This one's also up in Canada. I think last week's might have been Canada that we talked about. But what are we talking about? We're talking about a comic book store in Edmonton. It's called Wizards Comics and Collectibles. It was broken into on the 16th, so a few days ago. You can see the smashed window here. They went in and just did a smash and grab at night. The store owner estimates about $40,000 worth of merchandise was stolen. Comic books, Magic the Gathering cards, and Pokemon cards. Here, it happened sometime between midnight and 9 a.m. Here's the saddest part. This particular store was selling a lot of stuff on consignment. So a lot of the merchandise that was stolen isn't even theirs. You know, consignment is like, say I have a copy of, Captain America #1, and I want to sell it, but I'm not a store, so I let the store keep it there, and if they sell it, they get a percentage. I'll say, okay, you get 20% of the profits, and I get like 80%. I don't know what the deal would be, but that's consignment, okay? So they're selling it on my behalf. Bunch of stuff like not owned by the store was stolen. I'm getting tired of seeing this in the news. I really am. I don't understand it. I'm sad to see people are so desperate that they're stealing like this. It's just not nice. It's really unpleasant. But it's part of the news, so I wanted to report on it. Anybody live anywhere near there? Let's see. This is related. A comic book store was robbed by you. Hello, police. Yeah, I've got a guy in my chat room that says that he was robbed, or he robbed, because you said it was robbed by me, but I assume you mean was robbed near you in Rochester. It's a sign, time for me to become a superhero in real life. Well, remember, I did do that for a year. It was like 9 years ago. I patrolled as a superhero, but I don't think I would do that again. Stop that fan, exactly. Prepositions. They get us every time, those damn prepositions. I definitely know that you did not mean that you robbed it, Archmage. It's all good. It's all good. What was I just thinking of? Sorry, all of a sudden my brain went a little quiet there. I was going to say something about that. I forget. Am I going to do a story about Kirkman's big Skybound IPO today? Es posible. Es posible. Oh, these guys always trying to get ahead of me. Let's see, what's that? You were a superhero? Is there footage of this? There is. There is. tell you what, if you go to Comic Tropes, my main channel, I'll call it, I've got a video there where I talk about it. And I've got some footage from documentaries that were made. They were, just to be clear, they were really made about Phoenix Jones. He's the guy that but I'm there and I talk to the camera and stuff. So there were several documentaries that were made. We were on ESPN for a documentary on them. Yeah. Let's see. Thank you again, Andrew Jefferson, saying you should try Maniac of New York. Third mini started last week. It's like Jason Takes Manhattan, but then he stays and people have to live with periodic attacks because otherwise the economy would dip. Oh my God, that sounds brilliant. That's just like what we're all having to deal with the COVID. That is so cool. Who publishes that? I love that idea. That sounds really cool. Maniac of New York. I'll remember and I'll Google it, but that sounds totally awesome. Yes, Jackie, just drawing a little Ultraman there. I'll show it towards the end of the night. I'm just sort of pecking away at inking while I talk about the news of the week. Oh, Aftershock? The little problematic since they're like having trouble paying their artists and they're like dealing with a bankruptcy right now, but that sounds like a great comic. If it's out there, I'll get it. Sorry, I'm having a little snack because I need to keep my energy up. There's a lot more to say tonight. A lot more. This story, I don't know, I felt it. I fight some severe depression. I deal with that every day. I take medicine for it. I try to eat healthier now, exercise, socialize, but I deal with some super bad depression issues. Well, webtoon creators have depression issues, a study has found out. Let me finish eating this. It's gross, huh? Okay, Maniac of New York. Elliot Kalin and Andrea Muddy. Okay. All right. So, there's been a Korean report that studied webtoon creators. And by the way, when I say webtoon creators in this particular context, I am not talking about the literal website called Webtoon. All Korean digital comics are referred to as Webtoon. So a little confusing, I know. One person was smart enough to get that name, but they all sort of translate to Webtoon. So we're talking about just people that are making manhwa digital comics. And this is specifically the South Korean market, but they're huge there, hugely popular, I should say, with readership. And the Twitter user manhwabang_ translated this study. I looked at the report and used like a Google Translate. It wasn't super clear, but I thought the findings were interesting. And if you want to read the full findings, I recommend going to that Twitter site, manhwabang_. I've got like a little link that posted there too. Okay, so here are some of the findings of it. First of all, it spells out there is a huge amount of pressure to turn work out regularly for low pay, and it's leading to poor health conditions. My God, do I relate to this? Not only do I personally deal with depression, the reason it took me a couple weeks to get the latest comic tropes out to you guys is because I was fighting burnout. But there is such a pressure to continue to put out regular content. And if you don't, you see your views and therefore your ad dollars and stuff all dip. It's very frustrating because you're feeling this pressure to perform all the time. And sometimes it's not paying a lot. I definitely see that with YouTube. YouTube does not pay what it did a couple years ago. It just doesn't. So that's frustrating. It's tough, but whatever. That's a little bit separate. I'm just saying I can relate to this. Okay. And this is good advice too. Yes. MF, remember to stand up and move a bit, artists and other idol folks. It's so true. Yeah. You gotta move around. Hello, JLS Comics. Thanks for jumping in. Yeah, that's fair, Caveman. What we call web comics, Webtoon is a comparable term. Okay. So there's some other findings here. Maybe you guys have read ahead, but anyway, there are two examples in that were translated here. There's a book called, I say book, but a webtoon called Solo Leveling. Is also a studio head, a guy named Sunrak Zhang. He died last year from a brain hemorrhage. Now, it was connected to a chronic illness, but the blog writes that that condition could have been tied in to the bad work conditions, the stress and the sitting and stuff like that. It's a little scary. Here's a sad too. Anna artist, Junil Juice, I'm probably mispronouncing it. Sorry. She suffered a miscarriage. So people are being affected in huge ways. We're not just talking, oh, I feel sad. We're talking it's leading to some bad health issues. Here's just one statistic. And again, I encourage you to go to manhwabang_ to read more of their statistics. This is just one. From this study that the Korean site did, 28.7% of webtoon writers that responded to the survey have depression, compared to the national average of 7.7%, 4 times more than the average person in society. That's how stressful it is to work on some of these comics. Oof. It's tough. You know what? This is a great point, Shin Matthias. Stress definitely stifles creativity. I think creative people have to find a way. I'm not saying they have to. I'm saying they do find a way to section that off. They've got the stress, but they feel the need to perform, and they just find a way to work within it. And that's not good, but that's what they do. They just have to find a way to move forward. Hold on. I'm looking at a super chat here from Dr. Shubil I want to acknowledge. Sadly, many of us deal with depression. So glad you're taking the time you need to stay grounded. You're doing great work. That's really, really kind of you. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you. No more jokes for the rest of the night. It's all serious from here on now. But thank you. That's really, really nice. Oh, yeah. Xavier has a point to add that's worth noting. I remember in Naoki Urasawa Manben, that's basically sort of a documentary show he does on Japanese television station. I want to say NHK, where he follows manga artists and documents their work process. He went to the doctor, told him his arm essentially fused or something like that because of the way he was drawing. With deadlines, it can be really hard to force yourself to get up and stretch and take a break. I literally do have this problem when I'm editing sometimes. I'm like, I know I need to get up. It's like I'm thirsty or I need to pee, but I'm like, I want to finish something. And I stay there and I end up with like, I'll almost limp into bed sometimes because my lower back has kinked up so badly by sitting. Just to be clear, a lot of times when I do that, it's specifically because I've been sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, working at a kotatsu. Sometimes it's nice in short amounts, but if I stay there for hours on end, it really messes up my back. I got to stop doing that. Michael says, I animate for Disney. Whenever I'm not working, I try to keep active. Having a weekly thing to do can help a lot. I do dance classes. It helps a lot. That sounds smart and healthy, and I'm glad you're taking care of yourself like that. If you guys like have a desk job and you can get like a standing desk so that you can move it up or down when you need to, boy, is that so much better for you. I used to do that sometimes at work. It was nice. Jacob saying, for all your great content and amazing recommendations, keep it coming, but at a comfortable pace, of course. Thank you. I appreciate that. Would I get a standing desk? It's a little harder for me to be comfortable standing and editing just because of how it is. I could do regular sort of typing and messaging and stuff like that at a standing desk, but editing, I don't know. I know you're too old to be on the floor that long. That's the thing. I am older, but I don't think of myself as older. Mentally, I don't feel old. I work with some really young people. I don't feel like I look necessarily even my age. So like I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, I'm older, but I don't feel old. But I am older. I got to watch out for myself. And you're right, Gene. That's so true. Even 10 years ago, if I sat on the floor doing something, it wouldn't really hurt me, but now it does. But yeah, so just some serious conditions here, and it sounds like a lot of you can relate to some of this. I don't know what the ideal solution here would be, other than to create awareness so that hopefully every once in a while we can come up with some smart solutions or sympathy for people like that. You guys are great sharing all this stuff. Thank you very much. Love you guys. You were a beefcake when you were a superhero. Would you ever hit the gym again? These days, I think what I'm more interested in is more just simple cardio, just to keep lean. I don't really have a lot of interest in building muscle. The only exception to that is I literally, if I was offered to do any sort of an influencer boxing match, I would take that now. I probably wouldn't in a couple years, but for now, I probably still would, and I would be willing to put on some muscle for something like that if I could have a reasonable amount of time to train, like 6 months or something. I would do that. I literally would. I don't think that'll happen. I'm just saying I would be open to that. And that's the other than that, at this age, I just more want to just keep extra weight off. I don't really have a need to add muscle anymore. Just not something I'm interested in. I'm going to move on to the next piece to talk about health. Health. Everybody, you can now bust open your Twinkies and eat them. There is no judgment here. Let's do it. Yo, Comic Museum is open to the public. I just found out about this because I came across an article in I forget which newspaper it was. Might have been, well, I don't remember, but it was one of the Ohio newspapers. It had this article. This guy on the right here, that's a guy named Bill Blackbeard. Pretty cool last name, right? And Bill Blackbeard had a massive comics collection, primarily newspaper comics, dating all back to like 1890s, right? Like the beginning of this stuff. He had a massive collection. We're talking like 75 tons worth. That's like what it weighed. 75 tons worth of comics. This is him in like a part of his personal library looking at like a comic, right? Well, back in like let me do some quick math here, like somewhere in the mid 90s, that ended up all getting donated to Ohio State University. It made a trek from San Francisco out to Ohio in these trucks, and Ohio State University now has the largest newspaper comics archive in the world. The collection is housed within the Billy Ireland Cartoon Library and Museum. I don't know if you guys have heard about it before. I've never been able to visit it, but I do hope to someday because I hear it's absolutely amazing. Just tons of comics, a lot of comics history. The woman that is the head curator I think her name's Catherine McGurk. She is on social media and stuff like that. She knows her stuff. She really knows her stuff. Anyway, to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the museum acquiring all these comics, they're sharing a portion of it with the public. The exhibit is called Man Saves Comics. Goes all the way through May 7th. We're definitely talking about stuff like Popeye, Cats and Jammer Kids, Blondie, and a bunch that you'd probably never have heard of, but just amazing. Just amazing. I feel like I missed something. OSU campus is a bitch to drive around, though. That's the payment for going to see something like this. Columbus, Ohio has a huge indie comics event. Yeah, that's so cool. I wanted to visit, but it was never open until now. It's not absolutely everything, but they definitely have a huge like part of their collection open to the public to see now. Should be really, really awesome. This is absolutely one of the greatest pieces of news I've heard in my life. Hey, if I was on the East Coast, I would definitely drive quite a ways to go to something like this. I think that just sounds awesome. Yeah, that's fair, Beowulf. It sounds like Portland with our Dark Horse Library collection. I'll tell you, when I lived in DC, one of the best things that I like to do was drive up to Baltimore to go to the Jeppy Comic Book Museum. I went to that a couple times. Oh, he had so many amazing books there. Just everything rare and cool. And yeah, it's not there anymore. Closed it down, but pretty cool stuff. And I would love to go to something like this. It's not really feasible for me, but I figured, why don't I share it with all of you? Maybe one of you guys can do it. I hope so, anyway. Is anyone out there now thinking of going to something like this? I would not be surprised if there's some Beetle Bailey in there. There probably could be some Mary Worth. There you go. Yes. I'd be stunned if Peanuts wasn't in there. I live pretty close, so yes, that is awesome, Clay. I hope you enjoy it. That's so cool. I went to the Sequential Art Museum in Northampton, Massachusetts. It was great. Shame it closed. Yeah, that was started. It wasn't that started by. Was it started by Kevin Eastman or Peter Laird? It was started by one of them. I think it was Eastman. I'm pretty sure that was Kevin Eastman. Anyway, glad I could share it. I think it's cool. Comic book history. Speaking of Eastman and Laird, I've got some Ninja Turtles news. So we know that Last Ronin was a big hit for IDW. Last Ronin, great comic. Made my top 10 of the year. There's both a prequel and a sequel coming out of it. The prequel series starts this week, the 25th. That's by writers Kevin Eastman and Tom Waltz, and art by Ben Bishop. And then later in May, we're getting a sequel series to it. It's called the Last Ronin Lost Day Special. I think they said it was going to be like a 40-page one-shot, and that's going to focus on the 4 young turtles that April O'Neil and her daughter Casey are raising. And that has the same creative team plus art by S.L. Gallant. So really, really cool. You know, I'm not super familiar with Ben Bishop, but I'm excited to see what it is. Still need to read that. Well, good news. There's a director's cut coming out really soon that will have some extra bonus material in it, like a nice hard cover collection. Yeah, I've seen some of the 2003 Ninja Turtle series. I would say don't say which turtle it is. Don't say it even in the chat. Just got the hardcover trade of Last Ronin, and I'm currently making my way through it. That's awesome, Tay. I hope you like it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was definitely a fun take on things. A little dark, but that's okay. Yeah. From an idea by the original creators. So we've had a lot of involvement by Kevin Eastman, but we haven't had a lot of involvement in a long time by Peter Laird, and it was just nice that he was involved in some way, even if it was just sort of the overall idea. How have Daredevil and the Ninja Turtles never teamed up? I know. That would be such a good crossover. That would really, really be cool. It should happen. It hasn't happened. I don't know if it ever would, but it would be cool. Yep, I did get the Little Nemo book. Oh, you got it in November? It's amazing. It's just fantastic. Oh, okay. People are saying that the last turtle is Gamera. There you go. Hey, I'm drawing Ultraman. Let's talk about some more, yeah, like gigantic kaiju stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, it's you guys. You guys. It's got some funny people in this chat room, apparently. Not too shabby. I've got more news, though. Oh, hold on. Look at that. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Let's see. Andrew asks, which franchise would you like to see get the Last Ronin Old Man Logan treatment? Who would I like to just sort of see, like, aged way up and everything? Indiana Jones. Do you think that they'd ever give me? Do you think I'd ever be lucky enough to see an Indiana Jones about 80 years old in the 1960s? Oh, that's the dream. That's the dream. No, let's see. Who would I want? I'd have said Spider-Man, but we've gotten a couple like that in the last few years. Yeah, I don't think Bruce Willis is up for that anymore, unfortunately. Squirrel Girl? That could be fun, actually. The Last Power Ranger. I could see that being fun. Punisher. There is a Punisher story that's like set in a post-apocalyptic Earth that Garth Ennis did, and I'm trying to remember the artist. It might have been Derek Robertson. It might have been Richard Corbin. It's really hard to guess, but there was something like that. No, haven't gotten to the ComiXology news quite yet. I've got quite a few bits of news, but let's see what's next. This was where Jazz comic is coming from Image. Folks, even if you're not like a huge fan of jazz, you got to respect jazz. Jazz is one of the few American art forms. I'd say that comic books and jazz are two things that we should be very proud of. Obviously based on nothing comes out of nowhere, but I would say that, like, as we recognize it today, comic books and jazz are two things that are original art forms to have come from America. So, book is going to be called Deep Cuts. Comes to us from Radiant Black writers Kyle Higgins and Joe Clark. Well, I like their work. It's going to be 6 double-sized issues covering 60 years of jazz history. We've got a wide variety of artists on it. Let's see. It's, a different artist for each issue, I guess. I have to admit, I don't know all of them. I know Ramon Perez, because he did Stillwater, and Junie Bod does, I want to say, Monkey Meat. So I know them. I don't know the rest. The covers are going to be connecting covers by Kurt and Rico Renzi. Great creative team. That'll be super interesting to see, like, the history there. And Higgins says it's not really meant to just be like a boring historical account of things. No, it follows actual characters and is just set in the world of jazz. It's going to start in New Orleans, 1917. Yo, as somebody that lived in New Orleans, you can't help but learn to respect a bit of jazz. They've got Jazz Festival. They've got Preservation Hall. Got to see one of my friends get married there. New Orleans has a lot of respect for jazz and jazz history, and it kind of makes you appreciate it. Going down Bourbon Street, you can definitely hear live jazz playing out a bunch of the clubs. So I got to witness that. Really cool. I think it should be fun. I think it really should be fun. Yeah, totally. New Orleans is where it needs to start. Totally. Could be really cool. Did I live there in 1917? Hey, I'm old, but am I that old? Am I over 100 years old? I don't know. It's possible. Not quite my tempo. I want a tempo like Spider-Man's. You know who was the perfect embodiment of comic books and jazz? Harvey Pekar. Yep. Guy loved his jazz records. God, he made some great comics too. I have not read that, Jamilin. I'm sorry. I don't know Blue and Green. Yeah, Robert Crumb put in a lot of jazz illustrations. That's how Picard and Robert Crumb came to be friends and collaborators, because they both collected a lot of jazz records. Respect. Anyway, I thought it sounded cool. I wanted to pass it on. There was an Invincible Season 2 update, and I've got Easter eggs from it, because I know Invincible. I love Invincible. If I haven't ever made that clear, I do love Invincible. So, Season 1 of the animated series was really cool, in my opinion. I thought it was awesome. And we have been waiting patiently for an update on when is Season 2 coming out. Well, there was a teaser trailer this past week, animated, with Invincible, Mark Grayson, and Alien, voiced by Seth Rogen, talking about that. Like, hey, it's been a while since we heard anything. When's it coming out? Well, they don't give us too many specifics, but they promise that it will be out by late 2023. So I guess we can consider like the winter time frame. We will finally get Season 2. In an interview video thing that Comic Book Resources did, Robert said that he was considering writing some episodes of the Invincible show that would be new. They wouldn't necessarily be based on a comic, like that there were ideas that he had for the comic that he was never able to quite get to, and that he is very tempted to write those as new things for the TV show. I hope he does. So we shall see. So you'd think, like, how many Easter eggs could they fit in if it's just these two talking in a diner? It's basically like there's not a whole lot to it, right? There's no other real clips or anything. I found 3 things that I thought were really cool. I'm going to share those with you. First of all, who's this to the right in the booth behind Alan? If we look closely, these are 2 versions of the same character. This guy, one of Invincible's greatest enemies, Angstrom Levy. He's a guy who basically finds a way to go to parallel worlds. He expands his brain in a really gross way, leads to several great like battles. Really, really cool stuff. But that is definitely Angstrom Levy right there. Second, Mark is scrolling on his phone. Now, this is super tiny, right? That is super tiny. But I recognized it because I'm a Cory Walker fan. Maybe you guys did too. That is Marvel Team Up issue 14. That was something that Kirkman and Cory Walker did, where Invincible met Spider-Man. But they framed it such that Mark's hand is definitely covering Spider-Man. But that little corner there, like, talk about an obscure Easter egg. But I was looking at the phone for an Easter egg, and I found it. That is, I know, hard to say, probably even harder on the screen, but that is definitely Marvel Team Up. That's definitely Marvel Team Up. And then the last one that I wanted to point out is Mark talks about why it's taking so long. And he talks about all the different steps that go into animation. Well, one of them is talking about writing. By the way, these sort of chibi Mark Grayson's doing all the steps in the bottom corner are hilarious. And we've got a script here, which is only on screen for about a second, but it does mention the scene where Immortal comes back and fights Invincible. So it looks like that's something we might be able to look forward to seeing in Season 2. You know, are we going to see Marvel Team Up? No. Are we going to see Angstrom Levy in Season 2? Possibly. I mean, they obviously did design the characters, right? They designed some versions of the characters. But if they're showing this, I think it's a pretty safe bet that we'll get to see that fight between Immortal and Invincible. So I wanted to share some of that stuff. The animation for the teaser was directed by a prawn animator. Just a little fun fact, it was. I don't know who that would be. But I like Invincible. I hope you guys like Invincible. I think it's really cool. Yeah, he did go to a zombie universe once, didn't he? Yeah. They did a lot of interesting stuff with parallel worlds and stuff. The Invincible War is probably the coolest overall, but that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. I could be, but then again, have I ever been wrong? I don't think I have. I'm thinking of my history, and I don't think I've ever actually been wrong. Yeah. Yeah, I've never been wrong, so... Yeah. You haven't watched the show? It's really cool, in my opinion. I love it. I love it. I can't relate to Invincible. I'm so easily defeated by everything. Fair. Good one. I hope he does a crossover with the Tick. Oh, man. That's right. He did do a crossover, right? Yeah, Benito Cereno got to write that. Yep. I've never seen it happen. Oh, you've never seen me make a mistake. Right. And that's my sister. She's known me her whole life, and she's never seen me make a mistake. You think I'm going to make one now? I'm going to make one now. I mean, I'm not going to make one now. Oh, damn it. I had a good run there. I had a good run. How was I wrong about cryptocurrency? I don't really know what I specifically said that I was wrong about. You'd have to tell me. Would Chrissy agree that you've never been wrong? Oh, absolutely. 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 Let's see. I've never watched Vox Machina. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing it right. So I don't know. Let's see what else we've got for news. Speaking of Amazon Prime, they're doing the Invincible animated series. They also had success with The Boys. And they've done some other, by the way, like good adaptations of comic book stuff, but sometimes they just cancel it. Paper Girls was cool. The Tick was cool. They just... Amazon Prime apparently is going to adapt some more comics. This comes above line. The Amazon brokered a deal with spouses Matt Fraction and Kelly Sue DeConnick to adapt their comics. Specifically, we're talking about Bitch Planet by Kelly Sue, and that's where non-compliant women get shipped off to a prison planet. Very pulpy stuff. I like that book. I thought it was a blast. I really do. And Sex Criminals. Now, that's written by both... or created by Matt Fraction and Chip Zdarsky, just to be clear. And that's where an actor and a librarian discover that they can freeze time when they complete a sexual act. So those might become TV shows. We shall see. We shall see. Yeah, that's you agreeing that I never made a mistake, right? Anyway, we'll see. You liked Pretty Deadly? I've heard good things. I haven't read that one, actually. They should give Tara a new Invincible series. Yeah. Young Invincible Girl. These two comics are going to set the world on fire when they become shows. They could. They could. I think that they would appeal to a broad audience. I really do. Yeah, a little bit Orange is the New Black in Space. A little more pulp action stuff, but yeah, a little bit. All right. Appreciate you guys' feedback. I've got other things that I need to talk about. Let's talk about Amazon's massive ComiXology layoffs. This is the thing that brought everybody here, right? This was the thing in the thumbnail. This was definitely, I think, the biggest comic book news of the week. Your mileage may vary there, but yeah. Overall, by the way, my reaction to all these layoffs is one of sympathy, because no matter what you thought of the ComiXology app these days, and there have been problems with them, I think that the people behind the scenes working for ComiXology overall are very passionate comic book fans, very passionate. But this past Wednesday, massive layoffs. What I'm hearing in social media and reports from people that have left is we're talking about 75% of the staff at ComiXology was laid off. A lot. We're definitely talking closer to 75 than 50% anyway. Just to be clear, though, it's not specifically about ComiXology necessarily. Amazon is making humongous cuts. Yes, they're massively successful. They have made some dumb mistakes lately, and they now have a plan to lay off 18,000 employees. Now, that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But Amazon, I think, has literally millions of employees worldwide. When you talk like including like certain contractors and stuff, it's crazy how big they are. But yeah, they're laying off 18,000 people, which is definitely not nothing. Over here on the right is page 1 of 2 pages of a memo that got leaked, coming from retail CEO Doug Harrington, where he explains why they have to do these layoffs. And I'll boil that down to you. But like, okay, during the pandemic, people had to order stuff to be delivered. Amazon was doing gangbusters. Amazon was also making a very, very questionable decision to, and this is kind of ironic, but put a lot of their resources into making brick and mortar stores where people could get, like books, groceries, things like that. And what they found, ironically, is that they could not compete in the brick and mortar area. Yes, they're beating places like, say, Barnes & Noble, right, with their prices online. But as soon as they try to make a store, they can't compete with the prices that the existing big chains have created. They don't have the same economy of scale that they need to get the discounts for transportation and, distribution and things like that. So they wasted a lot of money on some of these decisions. They should have stuck to their core competency, online retailing. I guess hindsight's 2020, but it sounds stupid to me that they tried to do that. Just to be clear about the history of ComiXology, comic book reading app, pretty well acclaimed when it came out. Very easy to use, very easy to navigate. Amazon bought it in 2014. For a long time, it still worked really, really well. Last year, Amazon meddled with it. They basically want to move everybody over to Kindle, their online app. And ComiXology, as a reading experience, definitely got borked heavily by that. But we've been hearing that the people working for ComiXology were working to make changes and make that better. If you ask me, I feel like it's now significantly less likely that that will happen. I don't necessarily want ComiXology to go away because I would like there to be competition with a digital reading experience. And I think that that is a component of needing that competition. I don't want them to go away and only have basically one major alternative that also could like fall on their laurels. I want them to be competitive. But if they've laid off this much staff, I have to question whether the skeleton crew left behind is able to do more than just keep it even running. Or is it even intended to keep running? And Amazon might be pivoting to trying to just move everything to Kindle and do away with ComiXology. If so, to me, that seems like a waste of an investment. But at this point, that might be what they're considering. This is not the only area of Amazon that got affected. Another big one was they used to have this charitable program called Smile. You could go to like smile.amazon.com and a portion of your sales would get donated to the charity of your choice. It was pretty popular with people because it didn't cost anything extra and took a little bit and gave it to a charity. But I guess it wasn't popular enough, and Amazon has just scrapped that. Kind of a bummer. See, I'm not quite as cynical as you are here, Beowulf, saying that Amazon almost assuredly bought it to kill it from the start. If they did, I would say that an 8-year-long period of keeping it running well was a poor way to kill it. They just didn't do that very quick if that was their goal. So we'll see. Yeah, Marvin Nation, you're from Mexico, right? And so he's saying for some people, ComiXology is the only real option to legally purchase and read certain American comics. So some of us can, we're like, hey, I can go to the comic book store and get what I want. And I don't use ComiXology that much. ComiXology was very important to a lot of people worldwide. It really was. And I certainly used it a lot. Now I stopped using it like, 6 ago. I remember exactly how long ago they sort of borked it. But yeah. They're laying off employees despite pulling in massive profits. Yeah, but I don't know. They're making some mistakes. Right. I always smiled to support ASPCA. That's beautiful. I'm glad that you were able to use that for a while. They should bring back Wizard and use it with online sales. Well, Wizard became pretty problematic too, of course, because those Gareb Sheamus was definitely doing some sketchy stuff as a businessman. But yeah, let's see. Most comic publishers went same-day digital on ComiXology right as I started my deployment, and it helped me through plenty of hard times. That's awesome. So there's another yeah. So an active duty service member, a gentleman from another country, they were able to really harness ComiXology, and I think for a while it was a really great reading experience. I really do. I think that the people that are still there do care about comics and care about a good comics experience. I think that there are higher ups that aren't as invested and definitely have motivation to make Kindle the only source. We will see what happens. I don't have a lot of hope for ComiXology at this point, though. I really don't. I wish I did. Because I have enjoyed it, but I'm just my gut instinct. I'm not basing this on any inside knowledge. I just don't feel like it's got legs after all these layoffs, because I don't know exactly how many people. I just know the percentage, and that is a big percentage. But we'll see. Are there any comic reading apps that you use, from like Webtoon to Marvel's one to DC's one? Like, are there any that anybody out there do use as online apps for reading comics? Very curious to hear whether there are some, whether it's ComiXology or if anything else. I'm definitely curious. Should I sign up or no? I was looking into them when the news broke. Geez, I might wait now. Do a comic tropes episode on Wizard Magazine. Thanks for the super chat, Spiderfell. You know what? A big part of why I haven't done that yet is, a few years ago, Cartoonist Kayfabe started up, and they were using Wizard Magazine initially as the basis for their episodes. They would just sort of go through each issue and use it to comment on the artists and the comics that were coming out. And so they also talk a lot about the Wizard history. Now, could I do something that's maybe more concise about the history of Wizard? Yeah. It was just that it's sort of material that was being covered by a comic book related YouTube channel, and I didn't necessarily want to be too repetitive to something other people could get access to. So that's a little part of it. Yeah, Dark Horse has an app that's like ComiXology used to be. I've seen that. Yep. I find the Kindle app better than ComiXology these days, but I miss the old ComiXology app. Yeah, I totally understand that. Libby is a library-linked app capable of reading comics. I like the comic book reading app with libraries, Hoopla. I've been using that lately. My wife helped me sign up during the holidays, and that lets me check out a bunch of digital comics, and I think that's a pretty good reading experience. All you need is a library card. You can just plug it in, and you can start downloading free comics, which is pretty nice. Pretty good. Pretty good. Well, that's arguably the biggest news this week, but I do definitely have a few more things I want to talk about this week with everybody. So, oops. Yeah, thanks, Rick Ray. I'm glad that somebody agrees. Hoopla's pretty cool. Heavy Metal Magazine has been having some problems, and we've talked about this not too long ago in the news in terms of them admitting that they were paying people late and that they were making efforts to get caught up with that, but they are having a lot of problems, just to be clear. So much so that their CEO just quit. Matthew Medney, he was the CEO. He stepped down after we've had about a month of them reorganizing to supposedly pay their bills. Somebody named Marshall Lees is taking over. I have to admit, I don't know who that is. But there was a huge accusation against Heavy Metal Magazine, and specifically Matthew Medney, this past week from two creators named Claudio Alvarez and Geraldo Borges. They make a comic called The Last Detective, and they sold Heavy Metal the rights to publish it in English, which they started to do. And then Heavy Metal wasn't paying them. And they were like, hey, you ain't paying us. Where's the money? Where's the money? And they were hounding them. But it got worse. While they're arguing that that they haven't been paid yet, Matthew Medney called them up and said, well, guess what? I did a favor for you. I published your comic in the Italian edition of Heavy Metal Magazine. And I did that as a favor to you. And they were like, well, wait a minute. What? First of all, you never asked us permission. Second of all, you're not paying us for that? No, they're not. And they said, our contract for this comic expired back in June. And so first of all, we don't have a contract anymore. What are you talking about? You published this in a magazine. Our contract is already over. Second, foreign rights are completely separate from English edition rights. So you didn't have the rights to do that, by at least 2 counts, and you still haven't paid us for the American version. So that's a pretty big accusation. And there's also been accusations by other creators saying that they're getting paid late. Heavy Metal is admitted to that. They're restructuring so that they can hopefully pay people. But now if you looked on Twitter, there are a ton of readers who are saying that they haven't gotten their back issues that they ordered from the company. They paid for back issues and that those haven't been delivered. So that's a new problem that I only just came across this past week on Twitter. Either way, it is relaunching. Whatnot is now the publisher. It is relaunching with a new volume next month, a new issue 1. There's one of the variant covers by Peach Momoko, a pretty famous character. Let's see. Hold on. Super chat. Everything stopped. What was that old syndicated sitcom? I think it was called Out of This World, and the girl would go like this, and it would freeze time. Oh, wait a minute. What am I talking about? In Saved by the Bell, people are more familiar with that. Zach could just go, time out, and everything would freeze. Anyway, Michael says, your news of the week streams are a pleasure. I do not have time to catch up with the comic news. Also, your recent Comic Tropes episode was great. Dude, thank you so much. Thank you. That's really nice of you. If I read that story correctly, that story by Alvarez and Borges contained IP that they no longer had the license to use. Exactly. It was an adaptation on top of that. That's a third problem. They said, look, our contract ended. We never gave you the rights to publish it in a different language. And on top of that, we were licensing a play and turning it into a comic. That license is now over. What are you talking about? You just published it in a foreign edition. Just a total mess. Total mess. Medney just genuinely does not seem to know how magazines work on a very basic level. I don't know his background before this. That's possible. Yes, the cover is pretty dope. The cover's dope. I want it to work. In the 90s, Heavy Metal Magazine introduced me to so many amazing European artists. That was eye-opening. Just incredible art. Loved it. Loved it. Evie could stop time. Right. Evie. Wait, and wasn't her father's voice? Who's that guy with the big mustache? He's not with us anymore. Burt Reynolds. I think her father was Burt Reynolds. He was an alien. That's why she had powers to stop time. Did you see the Alex Ross variant covers for Marvel? Which would you like to get? No, I didn't see those, I'm afraid. I just realized I skipped a piece of news. Skipped something. This was this morning. Let me jump back to a different image so that I can... Okay. We'll go to this image because that's Invincible. That's by Kirkman. I have some Robert Kirkman news that I forgot to put in this document. This morning, Robert Kirkman's Skybound Entertainment announced that they are raising $75 million from fans in an introductory public offering. That's when you go public with a company and you have stocks. So he announced this through a crowdfunding app called Republic. I don't know Republic, I have to admit. I don't know. I've never looked into it. As of now, I think it's got like about $12 million raised already towards their $75 million goal. Talking somewhere close to 5,000 investors. And yeah, okay, so here's how it's different from investing in a public offering, like a company with like doing a crowdfunding, because this is different. If you, instead of buying shares in a company, you invest through this crowdfunding app, Republic, in Skybound Entertainment, and you get an investment contract, which they call Crowd Safe, and it gives you a financial interest in the company. The contract explicitly spells out that you have a financial interest in the company. You're not eligible for getting dividends or other benefits that a public company offers. But if Skybound gets acquired, if it goes public, if it does go into an IPO, or if it just sold all of its assets, things like that, then investors would get a return based on like the percentage. There's a risk there, folks. I am not an investment expert, so do not let my interest in this story make you think that I'm going to do that. Don't let your fandom dictate this. Investment should definitely be taken into careful consideration, balancing the risks and rewards of the option. Okay. There are some risks to that. And Republic spells that out when you look at it. It's hard to describe. Because it's not quite the same as an IPO, but it is connected to comics. Skybound is where, like Kirkman publishes all his books through. I mean, it's through Image, but it's through his studio that develops it. And he also, of course, helps other people. They can pitch, and Skybound will like help publish that, and they'll also work to sell those to like entertainment projects, video games, movies, cartoons, whatever it might be, and they get like a percentage of it, and you get a percentage of it. So that's a fine deal. That's a fine deal. But anyway, yeah. A common interest share, that's like the lowest amount that you can get, just a common interest share, is $500. So that's your minimum investment. That's your minimum investment. Beyond that, I would recommend looking into some investment sites to see it described. It's sort of like going public, but in a very different way. So if it was an IPO, I feel I could explain that better. It's a little different than that. It's a little different. Hello, Larry. Let's see. He says, hello, Chris and friends. I'm here with my man, Dan Kennedy, who originally turned me onto your channels. More pros, more cons, more tropes for 23. Happy belated New Year's, everyone. Thank you so much for the kind words and for the super chat. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, they are asking for a $500 minimum, but keep in mind, they're trying to raise $75,000. So that means that there's, 150 shares? Am I doing the math right there? It's something close to that. It's something close to that. I just heard about this right before you went live, says Andy. Fascinating stuff. Curious what the purpose for raising this money right now is. I'm curious too. I'm very curious too. I'm always curious with any crowdfunding initiative, why does Skybound need $75,000? Was it 75,000 or 75 million? Because that's a huge difference. Let me just go back to the news article I was reading. Sorry, they're raising 75 million. I was saying 75,000. 75 million. That implies to me that rather than having a purely just sort of like license or sell, say, Invincible to Universal Studios for a movie, maybe they want to have access to the cash to develop one of their projects themselves, in which case you keep the profit for yourself. That's the best I can think of. That's the best I can think of, is that they must have one or a small handful of their properties that they want to develop into something specific, and that they would rather have access to the cash to do that themselves as compared to only getting a portion of it by licensing it out to somebody. That's my best guess. That is really... Oh, okay. I missed this super chat. Excuse me. Oh, look, I missed this one too. Much love from New York City and Philly. Pace Puppy 24. Thank you. All right, I missed this. Sorry about that, Gantris. I was looking at a news article. Got to sign off. Thank you again, Chris, for your advice. My wife and I are heading on our Japan trip this Friday and are super excited. Take care. Have a great time. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. A few more months for me. A few more months, but that's great. That's great. Again, this is purely speculation. I don't know why they want to raise the money or why they want to do it this way. I could try to reach out to Robert. We don't talk regularly anymore. I could try to reach out and get some clarification. But honestly, since this came out this morning, there is an excellent chance that websites like, I don't know, Comic Book Resources or Bleeding Cool or somebody like that has probably a bigger reach than me. I'm not sure. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. But they might get like a comment from Robert on this. So we'll see. We'll see. It is interesting. Daniel asks when I'm planning to go to Japan. Right now, we're thinking early June, just before it gets really hot. I think we'll go early June. But we're definitely planning on going this year. Going again. No need to risk your friendship on that. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I don't want to pry, but here's the thing. He announced this. It's public. I don't think it's... I'm not talking about having him on for an interview live and going why'd you do this? I'm saying I could try to reach out and see if he can explain it a little bit more, and maybe I could pass that on. We'll see. I think that they're definitely going to make an Invincible video game. I think that they are honestly probably already working on it. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm pretty sure that they are. I'm pretty sure they are. But I don't know anything. Let's go back to where for news, because I just wanted to get to that, and it's getting late, so I should wrap up. Okay, there's only 3 more pieces of news. 3. This one's brief though. Avengers is getting relaunched. Looks fun. That's why I thought I'd mention it. Marvel announced that the new creative team is going to be Jed MacKay and artist CF Villa. This cover, by the way, is Stuart Immonen. He's a god. But CF Villa is great, and Jed MacKay has been making a lot of waves, I feel like, lately. A lot of people were saying that they love his Moon Knight run. So Jed MacKay is definitely a hot writer. Not surprised to see Marvel bump him up onto a bigger title like this. Jason Aaron's 5-year run is ending in May. So, new creative team. And the team. Who's the team? Well, we can see most of them here. Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Sam Wilson version. So, like the big 3, though. Vision and Scarlet Witch, Black Panther, team leader. Team leader will be Captain Marvel. I think it's time for somebody other than Captain America to lead. A lot of time, it's cool seeing other people step in. I always liked Wasp as the leader. Black Widow was a really good leader for a long time on the book as well. So, we shall see how that goes. But actually, I thought that sounded encouraging. Good team dynamics, and good creative team. So we'll see. Hello, Scotland. Steve Rogers is also Captain America. There are 2 Captain Americas, just like there are 2 Spider-Mans right now. So, yeah, I follow Larry pretty closely. I talk with him a tiny bit. I know that he had some hand surgery. He's also recovering from a cold. Larry has a lot of trouble doing the things that he used to love doing, like play guitar and even draw. He's got specifically I think his trigger finger has been giving him a lot of trouble in both hands. Anyway. Let me move on to the other news, because apparently dinner is here. So I wanted to mention this. Yeah, look at this. Dinner's ready. Okay. If you want to start, Chrissy, I'm not offended, but let me just wrap up 2 more pieces of news. Any of you guys know who this guy is? Ike Perlmutter? You might, because he's got a huge role in Marvel, but you might not, because he really hides from the public eye. But he's a mega billionaire. And he's done some smart things business-wise. He took over Marvel in the 90s, and he got them out of bankruptcy. So, that's important. And he ended up selling Marvel to Disney in 2009 for $4 billion. He took a company from bankruptcy to $4 billion. That's impressive. I hate the guy. I think he's a piece of shit. I really do. He's super ultra conservative. He was part of Donald Trump's shadow cabinet that was running the VA quietly. Trump just appointed 3 friends to run the VA, and they did some really shady stuff. Just Google that, whatever news source you trust, you're going to find some really shady stuff about the guy. There's not many pictures of him out there. He doesn't go out in public or anything. There's a few pictures. There's not many. But when he sold Disney, because he likes to sort of hide from the public eye, essentially, he declined a board seat on Disney, but he got a ton of shares. People say that he probably is the biggest shareholder of Disney. Disney's a public company. They have shares, okay? Since the summer, Ike Perlmutter has been trying to put a guy in on the board of directors at Disney that most analysts suspect would just simply vote the way Ike wants to vote, and he could help control more of Disney. That he wants more of a say in Disney, but he doesn't want it to be under his name. And he's trying to push this 80-year-old guy named Nelson Putz, who used to be a Heinz ketchup executive. And I'll tell you, there's some funny analysis out there. If you go to The Hollywood Reporter, Kim Masters and Alex Weprin wrote an amazing analysis. Disney seems very resistant to letting this guy be on the board. When you try to go for a board seat, you lay out your creative vision, right? They recently took Bob Iger back because Iger has all sorts of experience with creative ideas, ways to make the park make money, ways to like do new things with entertainment. Bob Iger was the guy that, like, while he was running Disney, he bought Marvel, he bought Lucasfilm, Star Wars, stuff like that, and he bought Pixar. Huge acquisitions that really helped Disney in a huge way. The guy that, meanwhile, there's a guy that has made catch-up for a long time. What does he know about Disney? He would probably not be a good fit. His vision for just like listed a bunch of problems that Disney had. And it's like, yeah, we know that we have certain problems, you know, like, but what is your solution? He offered no solutions. Anyway, there's speculation that Ike Perlmutter is just pushing really hard because he's got a lot of voting shares to get one of his sort of proxies on there. Yes, yes, his real name is Putz. And what he knows is selling ketchup. Why does Ike Perlmutter think that this guy belongs on the Disney board of directors? I really don't know. I really don't. And if you look up Ike Perlmutter, he's said some horrible things. And he's gotten himself in trouble. Like, he does not like women. He does not like minorities. Every article seems to talk about that. It's crazy. It's crazy. He doesn't. I hate that he's the chairman of Marvel. Used to be the CEO, but now just the chairman, but still. All right, last piece of news here, because I got to wrap it up. DC has a bunch of books coming out soon, and they're returnable, which is supposed to be there to help make comic book shop owners more comfortable ordering bigger numbers, knowing that if they don't sell them, they can return them. Some of those include Superboy, Superman, and Green Arrow. They're all relaunching in April with a new #1 issue. Green Arrow, it's going to have him lost and his allies are trying to find him. Okay. Connor Kent no longer feels comfortable. Like, he doesn't feel like he belongs in the Superman family. He doesn't really feel like he belongs with, you know, like Robin and Wonder Girl and stuff. So he's going to try to find a new direction in life. And Superman is battling Parasite Zero. Parasite has long been one of his enemies, but I guess Parasite has like infected other people, including Lois Lane. So that sounded interesting, and I thought I'd pass that on. So that's everything I had for news. Looks like I didn't get super far in inking my drawing because I was getting really animated about talking about the various like news of the week and stuff like that. I've had fun though tonight. You guys have been amazing. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the conversation. I have had one of the most fun nights in a while. Thanks to all of you. I hope you've had an okay time too. If you haven't checked it out before, you got to check out this Ultraman thing. It's great. It's so cool. He fights giant monsters all the time. He can grow to be a giant himself. It's awesome. What's not to like? It's incredible. Any final comments? Let's take a quick look because my wife is probably a little mad that she's waiting for me to eat. Fun was had here too. Good. That's what I want. I wish Nuclear Man from Superman 4 stayed as a mainstay villain. Well, maybe he will someday. That would be interesting. Yeah, Ultra Mega's awesome. Ultra Mega's very, very cool. Thank you, Walter. That's very nice of you. Ultraman seems okay, but does he have staying power? Will he last? I think so. Returnable books. That they used to do that before, right? Yeah, for non-direct market, like newsstand stuff, they used to do it. Now they're offering a few options like that to comic book shop owners as well. So that is new. It's an interesting idea. But yeah, I've got dinner waiting upstairs. I should probably go get it. Great show. Go eat. look, I don't think I can find a better closing line than that. You know what I wanted to talk about here was like how to measure out like 3-point perspective, but I'll do that another night. We'll do it another night. This is a good stream. I was watching the first hour, but I lost power here in southern New Hampshire. Oh, well, I hope you can watch the replay, and I hope you're not too cold. I miss newsstand comics. Me too. Me too. All right. See you later, folks. Thank you for the kind words. Until I see you next time, tell you what, double salute. Boop. Keep reading comics. Take care, everybody.